The crimson dust of Proxima B settled across the view screen as Commander Alex Morgan adjusted the sensors on his makeshift outpost. 6 years of isolation had honed his survival instincts to a razor's edge. He knew something was wrong before the proximity alert even sounded. "Computer, identify approaching vessel," Alex commanded, his voice raspy from disuse. Living as the last known survivor of humanity had a way of limiting one's conversations. Unknown configuration. Stealth technology detected. Arrival estimated in 26 minutes, the AI responded coolly. Alex ran his hand through his dark, unkempt hair. They'd found him. Again. He'd thought this abandoned mining colony at the edge of charted space would buy him more time. "Begin Protocol Epsilon," he ordered, already moving to the weapons locker. The familiar weight of his phase pistol brought little comfort. This would be the 7th time he'd had to abandon a sanctuary since Earth's destruction. As he packed essential supplies and prepared to destroy all evidence of his presence, a wistful thought crossed his mind. Running was becoming tiresome. Sometimes he wondered if he should just let them take him, the last human specimen, for whatever zoo or laboratory awaited. But the memories of Earth's final days steeled his resolve. Someone needed to remember. Someone needed to know the truth. Aboard the Vakrini hunter vessel Shadowed Blade, Elara Tinchel completed her final equipment check. The sleek, iridescent scales along her forearms shimmed with anticipation as she secured her neural disruptor. "Target is isolated and unaware," her commander's voice resonated through the ship's comms. "Remember your orders, Hunter Tinchel. The human is to be captured alive and undamaged." "Understood, Commander Vex." Elara kept her tone neutral, though curiosity burned within her. Throughout her decade serving the Galactic Coalition, she'd never been assigned to capture a human. She'd assumed they were extinct after the Purification Wars. "Something troubles you?" Commander Vex's multifaceted eyes narrowed on the view screen. Elara straightened her posture. "No, sir. I simply wonder why one stray human warrants such attention from the Council." "Your wonder is unnecessary and dangerous." Vex's mandibles clicked with disapproval. "Humans are deceptive creatures. They nearly destroyed the Coalition with their aggression. This one is believed to possess data that could reignite human resistance cells." "Of course, sir." Elara nodded, though the explanation seemed rehearsed, like many things the Coalition had taught about humans. When the transmission ended, Elara reviewed her mission briefing again. The file on Commander Alexander Morgan was surprisingly thin for someone considered so dangerous. Former Earth Defense Force. Specialized in xenolinguistics and first contact protocols. Hardly the profile of a warmongering savage. But it wasn't her place to question. As the ship's stealth systems engaged for planetfall, Elara felt the familiar pre-mission focus settling over her mind. Yet something felt different this time, a strange resonance she couldn't identify. As she prepared for descent, Elara didn't notice the small anomaly in her neural implant readout. The implant designed to protect Vakrini hunters from telepathic interference was experiencing minute fluctuations, almost as if responding to something on the planet below. The ship entered Proxima B's atmosphere silently, dust clouds swirling in its wake. The hunt for the last human had begun, and with it, the unraveling of everything Elara had been raised to believe. The red sands of Proxima B whispered beneath Elara's feet as she emerged from her vessel. She'd landed 3 kilometers from the human's detected position, close enough for a swift approach, yet far enough to avoid detection. The dual suns hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the barren landscape. Elara activated her tracking implant, feeling the familiar tingle as it synchronized with her nervous system. The Vakrini were natural predators, but Coalition technology had enhanced their abilities to near mythical levels. Her pupils dilated, revealing heat signatures and microscopic disturbances in the environment. Target moving southwest at approximately 22 km/h, she murmured to her ship's AI. He's using some kind of modified mining vehicle. Shall I deploy aerial support? The AI inquired. Negative. This requires subtlety. Elara unholstered her pulse rifle and began her pursuit, her powerful legs easily adapting to the planet's lower gravity. The human's trail was surprisingly difficult to follow. Commander Morgan had clearly survived this long through cunning rather than luck. He dispersed thermal countermeasures and left false trails at 3 different junctures. Impressive for a species supposedly driven by emotion rather than logic. As nightfall approached, Elara paused at the ridge of an ancient impact crater. Below, partially concealed by indigenous crystalline vegetation, sat a small transport vehicle. Her enhanced vision detected a faint heat signature inside. Too faint, she realized suddenly, dropping to the ground as a projectile whistled over her head. That was a warning shot, called a deep voice from somewhere to her left. The next one won't be. Elara remained motionless, reassessing. The human had anticipated her tracking methods and created a decoy while positioning himself downwind. I have no quarrel with the Vakrini, the voice continued. Leave this planet and report that your target was eliminated in a mining accident. Commander Alexander Morgan, Elara responded, slowly turning her head toward his voice. I'm not here to kill you. A bitter laugh echoed across the crater. No, just to deliver me to those who will. After they've extracted whatever information they believe I have. Elara moved with blinding speed, rolling behind a rock formation as another projectile struck where she'd been lying. These weren't energy weapons but some kind of primitive ballistic device, harder to detect and surprisingly effective. The Coalition seeks justice for Earth's aggression, she called out, trying to pinpoint his location. Your cooperation could spare any remaining human colonies. There are no remaining colonies, the voice growled, closer now. And Earth never fired the first shot. Your coalition fabricated evidence to justify genocide. Elara frowned. The human's conviction seemed genuine, but she'd been warned about their capacity for deception. She checked her neural implant, still functioning, protecting her from any potential psychic manipulation. With a fluid motion, she vaulted over her cover, firing 3 precisely aimed stun pulses toward the human's position. She caught a glimpse of him diving between crystalline formations, taller than she'd expected, with features hardened by survival but lacking the bestial quality Coalition education had portrayed. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second, and Elara felt a peculiar jolt through her neural implant. The firefight escalated, both combatants displaying remarkable skill. Elara's superior physical abilities were matched by the human's intimate knowledge of the terrain and unconventional tactics. When he triggered a localized dust storm using mining explosives, she lost track of him momentarily. The ambush came from above. Morgan dropped from an overhanging ledge, his makeshift blade slicing along her arm before she could dodge. Vakrini blood, deep violet and slightly luminescent, spilled across the red sand. Elara retaliated instinctively, her natural claws extending as she struck upward, catching the human across his side. He grunted in pain but didn't slow, slamming his shoulder into her midsection. They tumbled down a short incline, separating at the bottom. Both wounded, they faced each other across 10 meters of open ground, weapons raised. You fight well, Elara acknowledged, her respect for her quarry grudgingly increasing. For a human. Morgan's intense eyes narrowed. And you're surprisingly honorable. For a Coalition lackey. Before either could fire, the ground beneath them trembled. Morgan glanced skyward, alarm crossing his features. Atmospheric disruption, he warned, already backing toward a narrow fissure in the crater wall. This area will be uninhabitable within minutes. He hesitated, looking at her bleeding arm. Something like reluctance crossed his face before he turned and sprinted away. Elara could have taken the shot, should have, but found herself processing his warning instead. As the first acidic droplets of Proxima B's notorious corrosive rains began to fall, she holstered her weapon and ran for her own shelter. Later, tending her wound in the confines of her ship, she reviewed the encounter. The human had opportunities to kill her but had chosen not to. More troublingly, she'd recovered a damaged data pad from near his decoy vehicle, one containing coalition military communications dated before the Earth bombardment. Communications that contradicted everything she'd been taught about the human coalition conflict. As Alara transmitted her status report to command, she omitted mentioning the data pad. For the first time in her career, she was withholding information. And even more disturbing was the realization that she was already planning their next encounter with something other than capture in mind. She needed answers, and Commander Alexander Morgan might be the only one who could provide them. The corrosive rainstorm showed no signs of abating as Alex huddled deeper in the abandoned mining tunnel. His makeshift medkit lay open beside him, the wound in his side freshly bandaged but still throbbing with each heartbeat. The Vakrini hunter had been faster than he'd anticipated, dangerously so. Alex examined the fragment of iridescent scale he'd collected during their struggle. The Vakrini were legendary trackers, but this one seemed different. She'd hesitated when she could have easily taken the kill shot. More importantly, she'd actually listened when he spoke of the Coalition's deception. "Computer, analyze composition," he instructed, placing the scale fragment into his portable scanner. "Organic metallic hybrid structure," the device responded. "Vakrini elite cast. Neural implant integration detected." Alex frowned. "Neural implant?" "Affirmative. Coalition military grade. Designed for enhanced tracking and telepathic suppression." The revelation triggered an idea so dangerous that Alex almost dismissed it immediately. The ancient records spoke of humanity's unique neurological pattern, one that allowed for empathic connections with certain species, including the Vakrini. It was this very capability that the Coalition had feared. If he could somehow bypass the hunter's neural implant. A distant rumble interrupted his planning. Not thunder, but something worse. The storm was intensifying into one of Proxima B's notorious megacyclones, planetary-scale weather systems that could strip the flesh from bones. Alex quickly gathered his equipment. The mining tunnel wouldn't provide adequate protection. He needed to reach the geothermal caves 5 kilometers south, and quickly. Alara cursed as her ship's systems flickered and died around her. The atmospheric discharge had fried her communication array and life support. Emergency power remained, but it wouldn't last through the megacyclone. The data pad she'd recovered from the human lay before her, its contents challenging everything she'd been taught. Coalition communications discussing a preemptive strike against Earth. Fabricated evidence of human aggression. Population centers specifically targeted to maximize casualties rather than strategic locations. But most disturbing was the classified research on human neurological patterns, their unique capacity for forming empathic bridges with other species. The Coalition had labeled this ability as psychic contamination. A violent shudder ran through her vessel as debris pummeled the exterior. She needed shelter, now. Gathering essential supplies, Alara sealed her environmental suit and forced the hatch open against howling winds. Visibility was near zero, but her implant detected a geological formation that might offer protection 2 kilometers southeast. She fought through the storm, the acid rain eating through her suit's outer layer. The navigation became increasingly difficult as her implant began malfunctioning, delivering sporadic bursts of static to her nervous system. When she finally reached the formation, she discovered it was the entrance to a vast cave system. Staggering inside, she collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath as her suit's filters struggled to process the contaminated air. "I was wondering if you'd make it." Alara's head snapped up. Sitting several meters away, Faye's pistol aimed steadily at her, was Commander Alexander Morgan. They regarded each other in tense silence, the howling storm creating a deafening backdrop to their standoff. "Your ship?" Alex finally asked. Damaged beyond immediate repair, Elara replied, her hand hovering near her weapon. Yours? Destroyed months ago. I've been using short-range transports since. Another silence fell between them. The practical reality of their situation was becoming clear, neither would survive the megacyclone without cooperation. I propose a temporary truce, Alex said carefully. At least until this storm passes. Elara's scales rippled with uncertainty. Why would you trust me? I don't. But I've survived this long by calculating odds. He gestured toward the cave entrance where debris was flying past at lethal velocities. Right now, we have better chances together than apart. Reluctantly, Elara nodded. Until the storm passes. They established separate camps on opposite sides of the central chamber, maintaining a wary distance. As hours passed, Elara noticed Alex periodically wincing, his hand pressing against his side where her claws had struck. Your wound requires proper treatment, she finally said. I have medical supplies. Alex hesitated but eventually allowed her to approach. As she applied regenerative gel to his injury, she noticed him studying her face with uncomfortable intensity. The data pad, he said suddenly. You found it, didn't you? Elara's hands froze. How did you? It was a calculated risk. I left it where I thought you might find it. His eyes locked with hers. Tell me what you saw. Potential propaganda, she replied stiffly. Designed to manipulate. You don't believe that, Alex challenged. Your neural implant is designed to prevent telepathic influence, but it can't stop logical deduction. The dates on those communications predated any human aggression. The attack on Earth was unprovoked. Elara stood abruptly, moving away. Even if that were true, why would the Coalition eliminate an entire species without cause? Because of what we are, Alex said quietly. What we could do. A sharp pain suddenly lanced through Elara's skull as her implant malfunctioned again, more severely this time. She gasped, stumbling against the cave wall. Alex was at her side instantly. Your implant is failing. The storm's electromagnetic interference. Stay back, she hissed, but another wave of pain dropped her to her knees. Listen to me, Alex insisted, kneeling before her but not touching her. Vakrini are natural telepaths. The implant suppressed that ability because the Coalition fears any species that can form empathic bonds. Humans had a neurological pattern that could bridge with Vakrini telepathy. They feared what would happen if our species connected. Elara's vision blurred as the implant sent another excruciating pulse through her nervous system. It's killing me, she realized aloud. I can help, Alex offered, his voice gentler than she'd heard before. But you need to lower your barriers. You need to let me in. That's against everything. Elara struggled to speak through the pain. I know, Alex said. But right now, it's your only chance. With the implant failing catastrophically, Elara made her choice. For the first time since childhood, she consciously lowered her telepathic barriers and reached out. The connection formed instantly, a bridge between two fundamentally different minds that somehow resonated in perfect harmony. Through Alex's consciousness, Elara witnessed the final days of Earth, peaceful cities vaporized without warning, billions of lives extinguished, the systematic hunting of survivors. And with that shared memory came an overwhelming tide of emotion, grief, rage, loneliness, and beneath it all, a desperate hope that the truth would someday be known. When Elara regained awareness of her physical surroundings, she found herself sitting across from Alex, tears streaming down her face, a biological response her species rarely experienced. Now you know, he said simply. The storm continued to rage outside, but within the cave, something fundamental had changed. The hunter and her prey had begun a transformation into something neither the human nor the Vakrini had a name for yet. And somewhere in the recesses of Elara's mind, the Coalition's control began to fracture. Dawn broke over Proxima B, the megacyclone finally dissipating to reveal a landscape transformed. Crystalline formations had been shattered, leaving prismatic shards scattered across the red desert. Inside the cave, another transformation had taken place, one far more profound. Elara watched Alex as he slept fitfully across the chamber. The telepathic connection they'd shared had changed everything. Her implant now lay discarded, a small pile of circuitry and metallic components she'd extracted herself once the initial connection stabilized her neural pathways. Without it, her natural abilities had begun to resurface, bringing with them sensations she'd been denied since childhood. Most unsettling was the lingering awareness of Alex's consciousness, a warm presence at the periphery of her mind. The bond had not fully dissolved after the crisis passed. Alex stirred, his eyes opening to find her watching him. Neither spoke for several moments. "How much of me can you still feel?" he finally asked. "Enough," Elara replied. "Your emotions, some surface thoughts. It will fade with distance." Alex sat up slowly, wincing at his healing wound. "But you don't want distance, do you?" "Not anymore." The directness of his statement should have offended her, but the telepathic link made deception pointless. "No," she admitted. "I need to know more. I need to understand what the Coalition has been hiding." "There's a research outpost 3 days' journey from here," Alex said. "One of the last human facilities. It contains evidence I've been gathering, proof that could expose the Coalition's lies to the entire galactic community." Elara's scales shifted color slightly, reflecting her inner conflict. "The Coalition will have detected my failed transmission by now. They'll send others. Then we don't have much time." Alex stood, extending his hand toward her, a human gesture of partnership. "Are you with me?" Elara hesitated only briefly before taking his hand. The contact sent a surge through their bond, momentarily merging their sensory perceptions in a dizzying blend. They both pulled back, startled by the intensity. "That's unusual," Alex breathed. "The old records mentioned empathic bridges, but nothing like this." "The records were incomplete," Elara said, studying her hand where it had touched his. "Vakrini bonding has always been more profound than the Coalition allowed to be documented." They traveled across the harsh terrain in one of Alex's hidden transport vehicles, maintaining a cautious physical distance while their mental connection continued to evolve. Elara found herself absorbing fragments of human culture, language, and history through the link, glimpses of a world she'd been taught to despise but now found fascinating. "Your species created art simply to evoke emotional responses," she observed as they made camp on the second night. "No practical purpose." Alex smiled slightly. "That was the purpose, the emotion itself. Vakrini don't create art. Not for centuries. The Coalition determined it encouraged individualistic thinking." Elara's gaze drifted to the stars. "I'm beginning to understand why they feared humans so much. Your minds, they're chaotic, but there's a freedom in that chaos." "Freedom the Coalition couldn't control," Alex agreed. He hesitated before asking, "What happens to you after this? If we succeed in exposing the truth, you'll be considered a traitor." The question hung between them, unanswered but felt through their growing bond. Neither had contemplated a future beyond their immediate mission. On the third day, they arrived at the outpost, a structure partially embedded in the side of a mountain, its exterior designed to blend with the natural rock formation. "It's beautiful," Elara said softly as they approached. Alex glanced at her curiously. "It's a utilitarian research facility." "Not the building," she clarified. "The intention behind it. I can feel the echoes through you. This place was created to understand alien life, not to conquer it." Inside, Alex led her through abandoned laboratories and living quarters to a secure central chamber. As he worked to activate the facility systems, Elara explored the space, drawn to a wall of images, photographs of humans with various alien species, all appearing to interact peacefully. First Contact Division, Alex explained, noticing her interest. Specialists in establishing peaceful relations with new species. I was part of it before. He didn't need to finish. Ilara felt the surge of grief through their bond. The main console hummed to life, projecting a holographic display of countless documents, communications, and visual recordings. Alex began organizing the data, explaining each piece of evidence. Coalition orders predating any human aggression, detailed plans for Earth's destruction, and most damning, research directives focused on eliminating the human capacity for empathic bonding with other species. They called it the contamination protocol, Alex said grimly. Earth was just the beginning. Any species showing similar neurological patterns was to be evaluated for potential elimination. Ilara's mind raced as connections formed. Including subspecies within approved populations, she whispered, the horrible truth dawning on her. Like Vakrini, who showed stronger telepathic abilities. Yes, Alex confirmed. The implants weren't just to control you, they were to identify those who might resist control. The weight of this revelation settled between them, drawing them closer physically without conscious intention. Their hands brushed as they examined the evidence, sending ripples through their bond. Neither pulled away this time. We need to transmit this data to multiple systems, Ilara said, her voice low and intense. Before the coalition realizes what we're doing. They worked together through the night, preparing data packets for transmission to neutral worlds and independent trading posts throughout the galaxy. As dawn approached, exhaustion and emotional strain had brought them to a moment of quiet reflection, seated side by side at the communication array. Why didn't you kill me when you had the chance? Ilara asked suddenly. Alex was silent for a long moment. There's been enough death, he finally said. And, something told me you were different. The bond between them pulsed with unspoken emotion. Ilara turned to face him fully, her scales shifting to a deep, luminescent indigo, a color change Alex couldn't interpret but instinctively understood. The Vakrini have a belief, she said softly. That when minds truly resonate, it's not coincidence, but cosmic design. A connection that transcends physical form. On Earth, some would have called that destiny, Alex replied, his hand slowly rising to trace the contours of her face. The first touch of skin against scale sent a cascade of sensation through both of them, their bond flaring open completely. Barriers dissolved as they moved toward each other, the distinction between human and Vakrini momentarily irrelevant in the face of something far more primal and profound. Their union was unlike anything either species had documented, a merging of physical and telepathic intimacy that transcended conventional understanding. Through their bond, Ilara experienced human passion with its chaotic intensity, while Alex felt the ancient, almost mystical depth of Vakrini connection. In the aftermath, they lay intertwined, the boundaries between their separate consciousnesses temporarily blurred. Neither spoke, for words had become redundant. It was Ilara who first sensed the danger, her newly awakened abilities detecting distant minds approaching with hostile intent. They've found us, she said, reluctantly pulling away from Alex's embrace. Coalition hunters. At least 3 vessels. Alex rose quickly, moving to the communication array. We need to transmit now, before they can establish a blockade. As they rushed to complete their task, the first warning shots struck the exterior of the facility. Time had run out. Ilara met Alex's gaze across the chamber, their bond conveying what words couldn't encompass. Whatever happened next, they were irrevocably changed, and with them, perhaps the fate of the galaxy. Together, Alex said simply. Ilara nodded, her scales shifting to a determined cobalt blue. Together. The final transmission sequence initiated as the facility's defenses activated against the approaching coalition forces. Their forbidden alliance had begun a revolution neither had imagined possible days earlier, one born from the very connection the coalition had sought to destroy. The outpost trembled under the coalition's bombardment, ancient support beams groaning as dust cascaded from the ceiling. Alex and Alara worked frantically at the communication console, racing to complete the transmission of evidence to every corner of the galactic network. Firewall protocols breached, the facility's AI announced. Attempting countermeasures. They're trying to block the transmission, Alex muttered, his fingers flying across the holographic interface. Alara, I need you to. Already done, she replied, anticipating his request through their bond. Her connection to the system was unlike anything Alex had seen, Vakrini neural pathways interfacing directly with the technology, bypassing conventional security measures. A violent impact rocked the facility, sending equipment crashing to the floor. Emergency lighting flickered on as the main power faltered. Transmission at 68%, the AI reported. Estimated completion in 3 minutes. We don't have 3 minutes, Alex said grimly, retrieving his weapons. They'll breach the eastern entrance any moment. Alara moved to his side, her scales now a metallic silver, the Vakrini battle coloration. I'll hold them off. You ensure the transmission completes. Alex caught her arm. Through their bond flowed a current of fear, not for himself, but for her. No. We stay together. Alex. I've lost everything once before, he said, his voice dropping to a fierce whisper. I won't lose you too. There's another way. He pulled her toward a hidden access panel in the floor, revealing a narrow passage. Maintenance tunnels. They lead to an emergency launch bay. If we can reach it. Another explosion cut him off, this one much closer. The sound of coalition forces breaching the outer doors echoed down the corridor. Transmission at 82%, the AI announced. They made their decision without words, moving in perfect synchronization. Alex activated the facility's automated defense systems while Alara prepared the escape route. As they worked, their bond hummed with shared purpose and something deeper that neither had named yet. The first coalition hunters rounded the corner just as Alex sealed the inner doors. Through the reinforced viewport, he recognized the distinctive armor of the Draxus elite, the coalition's most lethal enforcers. Commander Morgan, a voice boomed through the comm system. By order of the Galactic Coalition, surrender yourself and the rogue Vakrini immediately. Alex's only response was to fire a focused EMP burst, temporarily disabling the hunters' advanced weapons. It wouldn't hold them long, but perhaps long enough. Transmission at 97%, the AI reported as they slipped into the maintenance tunnel, sealing it behind them. The narrow passage wound through the heart of the mountain, barely illuminated by emergency lighting strips. They moved swiftly, their minds linked in such perfect harmony that they navigated without verbal communication, anticipating each turn and obstacle as one. Do you think it will be enough? Alara asked as they approached the launch bay. Will the evidence change anything? Truth has power, Alex replied. Once people see what really happened, what the coalition really is, they won't be able to unsee it. Change will come, though not without struggle. The launch bay contained a single ship, a modified human scout vessel, designed for speed rather than combat. As they approached, the facility AI's voice reached them through the emergency communication system. Transmission complete. Full data dissemination achieved across 87% of targeted networks. They allowed themselves a moment of shared triumph, their bond flaring with hope. But the victory was short-lived as the facility rocked with another, more devastating explosion. They've breached the central core, Alex said, hurrying to prepare the ship for launch. We have minutes at most. Alara suddenly froze, her telepathic senses flaring. Alex, there's something else. The coalition forces, there's a secondary objective we didn't anticipate. She accessed the ship's scanner, confirming her suspicion. They've brought a resonance weapon. It's not just us they're after. They're planning to destabilize the planet's core. They'd destroy an entire world to keep the truth buried, Alex said, his voice hollow. We need to warn the mining colonies on the southern continent. As the ship's engines powered up, Alex established an emergency broadcast to all planetary settlements. But it was Alara who delivered the message, her voice carrying the unmistakable resonance of Vakrini authority. "This is Hunter Alara Tinchel of Clan Cyrex. The Coalition is deploying a planetary destabilizer. Evacuate immediately. Evidence of Coalition atrocities has been transmitted galaxy-wide. The deception ends today." The bay doors opened above them, revealing the crimson sky of Proxima b. As their ship launched, they caught a glimpse of the Coalition fleet in orbit, far more vessels than necessary for a simple capture mission. "They came prepared for war," Alex observed grimly. "Then war is what they'll get," Alara replied, her determination flowing through their bond. "But not here, not now. We have a greater purpose." They broke atmosphere just as the first Coalition ships began pursuit. What followed was a desperate chase through the Proxima system, with Alex's piloting skills pushed to their absolute limit. Their smaller vessel had the advantage of speed and maneuverability, but the Coalition ships had firepower and numbers. It was Alara who proposed the desperate gamble, using Proxima b's sister planet and its dense rings to perform a gravitational slingshot that might give them enough velocity to reach the hyperspace corridor. The calculations would need to be perfect, Alex cautioned. Alara's scales rippled with confidence. "Then it's fortunate we have two minds working as one." Through their bond, they merged their unique skills, Alex's intuitive understanding of spatial dynamics with Alara's precise Vakrini mathematical abilities. Together, they plotted a trajectory no single pilot could execute alone. As they approached the rings, Coalition weapons fire intensified. A glancing hit damaged their port stabilizer, sending the ship into a dangerous spin. Compensating, Alex called, his hands dancing across the controls. Through their bond, Alara felt his pain as the G-forces strained his human physiology. She reached across the cockpit, her hand finding his. The physical contact strengthened their connection, allowing her to share her Vakrini resilience with him. Together, they guided the damaged ship through the narrowest gap in the rings, using the gravitational forces to accelerate beyond their pursuers' capability to follow. The violent maneuver worked, hurling them toward the hyperspace corridor with enough velocity to make the jump. Behind them, the Coalition fleet scattered, unable to match their trajectory without risking destruction in the dense planetary rings. As stars stretched into luminous streaks around them, Alara and Alex finally allowed themselves to breathe. Their immediate escape secured, they turned to the ship's communication array, monitoring the impact of their transmission across galactic networks. The response was already building: protests on Coalition worlds, demands for investigation from neutral systems, and outrage from species who recognized their own vulnerability to the contamination protocol. "It's happening," Alex said softly, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. "The beginning of the end for them." Alara moved to his side, their bodies fitting together as naturally as their minds now did. "And the beginning of something new for us." Through their bond flowed images of possibility, a movement built around their union, gathering those who sought truth and connection rather than division and control. Humans in hiding, Vakrini who rejected their implants, and countless other species oppressed by Coalition lies, all finding common cause in the revolution their forbidden bond had sparked. "Where do we go now?" Alara asked, her scales shifting to a peaceful azure as she rested against him. Alex's arm encircled her, his mind opening fully to hers. In that intimate mental space, he shared not just his thoughts but his heart, the loneliness that had nearly consumed him, the spark of hope she had rekindled, and the future he now dared to imagine. "There's a system at the edge of known space," he said. "Too remote for Coalition control, home to refugees from a dozen worlds. It's where I plan to make my last stand, if it came to that." He paused, his emotions flowing freely through their bond. "Now, perhaps, it could be where we make our first beginning." Alara's response came not in words but in the deepening of their connection, a telepathic embrace that conveyed everything words could not. In that moment, they were neither human nor Vakrini, neither prey nor hunter, but something entirely new. Something the coalition had feared and tried to destroy, yet had inadvertently created through their very persecution. As their ship raced toward distant stars, the news of the coalition's crimes continued to spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The revolution had begun, not with weapons or armies, but with truth and connection. A single human and a single Vakrini, united against impossible odds, had changed the course of galactic history. And in the quiet sanctuary of their ship, surrounded by the vast emptiness of space yet more complete than either had ever been, Alex and Alara sealed their bond in the traditions of both their peoples. A human promise of devotion whispered against iridescent scales, a Vakrini oath of unity offered to warm human skin. Their story, the last human and the hunter who found him, would become legend in the new world they helped create. A world where differences were not feared but celebrated, where connection transcended physical form, and where the truth, once revealed, could never again be hidden by those who would use deception to maintain their power. As they plotted their course to the refuge system, a transmission reached them, the first of many responses to their call for unity. Others were following, joining the movement they had unwittingly begun. "They're calling it the empathic revolution," Alex said, showing Alara the message. She smiled, her scales shimmering with emotion. A fitting name. It was empathy, after all, that the coalition feared most. And love, Alex added softly, the word resonating through their bond with all its human intensity and Vakrini depth combined. Beyond the view screen, stars awaited, and with them, a future neither had dared imagine in their separated pasts, but which now stretched before them, luminous with possibility. The hunt had ended. The revolution had begun. And in its heart, an impossible union that would forever change the galaxy.